I am the Director of School Improvement on the Continuous Improvement team and currently serving as the Interim Director of the Education Quality Division. I'm joined by my team, who I will let introduce themselves now. Go ahead, Tony.
Sorry, just had to unmute there. Yeah. Hi, welcome. I'm Tony Mara, for those of you who don't know me. Thanks. I'm an Education Quality Coordinator. Simona?
Oops. Oh, go ahead.
Simona Cry, Education Quality Coordinator.
And Josh Sawyer, I'm an Education Quality Coordinator.
And we may or may not be joined by Danielle Dupuis from the Data Division. She had a medical emergency this morning. So we're going to cover their section as best we can this morning. But if you have further questions, they are more than willing to meet with you and answer those questions. So I'm going to begin with Danielle's section, giving you an overview about the accountability framework and our indicators for school improvement. So our accountability system under the Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA, requires us to adopt some rigorous academic standards, provide evidence-based standards-aligned instruction, and assess student performance both locally and at the state level against our standards and instruction. And then we evaluate the results by way of our state and local report cards, including the identification of schools in need of comprehensive or targeted support and improvement. And then our team engages you all in the continuous improvement planning, the implementation of your evidence-based strategies, and progress monitoring. So the accountability measures for elementary and middle school are based on the ESSA requirements, and this is how we've chosen to do things in Vermont. So for the ESSA requirement, academic achievement in ELA and math, we have our VCAP performance assessment in ELA and math, your assessment results. There, we had to select a second academic indicator, and so we chose academic growth in ELA and math. We also have an indicator of progress towards English language proficiency, if it's applicable. And we've chosen that using our assessment of English language proficiency. And then we also needed to select a measure of student success, or school quality, they call it. And for that, we've chosen academic achievement in science where applicable. So for the accountability measures at the high school level, again, we have the VTCAP academic achievement in ELA and math. We had to select 4-year graduation rate. We have a 4-year and 6-year graduation rate. Again, progress toward English language proficiency, and the measure of school success, student success, or school quality would be academic achievement in science, academic growth in ELA and math proficiency on the college and career readiness assessments, and post-secondary enrollment within 16 months of graduation. And you can see these are all weighted. So there are some calculations that go into all of the reporting and the identification. And so our school identifications are based on a weighted sum of the accountability measures. And the weights vary based on the grade configuration, based on the subject area, and based on the presence or absence of English learners. And then calculations are made for all students as well as several student groups for whom we need to identify any achievement gaps that might exist. And these are the various student groups we measure. So the groups at the top, so race, ethnicity, IEP status, FRL, EL, and historically marginalized are all included in the identification for equity supports in Vermont, or targeted supports, as you'll learn a little bit later. And as you can see, some are reported on the report cards, and some are used for identifications, and or both. We have in Vermont we selected a super group called historically marginalized students, mainly for the reason that we have a lot of small groups and small schools. So we wanted to be sure everyone was included in our accountability system, And so you can see that there are additional student groups within that category. Our annual snapshot is a place where you can log in and see if you have administrative login privileges, you can see your fully unsuppressed results of all of those weighted sums and the weights in the different subject area categories. And the results are reported by school, SURSD, and at the state level. The results are also reported for all students and for certain student groups, so you can toggle between the subjects and you can toggle between student groups to see comparisons or equity gaps. And that purpose is to provide information about whether we're making progress toward our long-term goals that we've set in our state plan. I'm going to leave this for Danielle, if she comes a little later. But now I'll talk to you a little bit about the school determinations and supports that we provide for continuous improvement. So in addition to identifying schools eligible for comprehensive support and improvement, the Every Student Succeeds Act also requires states to identify schools for targeted support and improvement and additional targeted support and improvement. And in Vermont, we refer to these as equity schools. So in response to ESSA, we had to create an accountability plan for Vermont. And this plan outlines our state accountability expectations and our AOE provided supports. So the equity or targeted support status is determined annually, and the comprehensive status is determined on a 3-year cycle. And it's important to note again that federal reporting requirements and the underlying data differ a little bit from the accountability determinations. So not everything you'll see in the report card is included in the identifications, and not everything in the snapshot is related to the identification. So a high priority for Vermont was to ensure that equitable outcomes are present for all of our students. And as such, an important piece of information to display for each school is the degree to which it is contributing to the state goal of eliminating gaps in educational opportunities for historically marginalized students. And those are those student groups that I shared a minute ago. So for this reason, we have elected to include an additional category beyond what statute requires. And this was decided upon years ago, so it's been in place for years, but it was decided that we would choose this additional category, Equity 1. And the purpose of this category, if you see yourselves identified for Equity 1 at any time, it is merely an awareness level that you have gaps are present, and just really to pay attention to those gaps and address them when you're planning for continuous improvement. So consider creating some goals and highlighting some strategies specific to those gaps when you see them. So the calculation for Equity 1, to determine Equity 1 schools, we calculate the equity gap between each student demographic group and the all student group, or the comparison group, using the summative scores. So based on all those indicators I just shared and the weighted sum of those scores, we calculate a gap. And the best way to describe this is with my hands, I think. So we have a target. And so when we see that there's a gap of a certain degree, it's flagged. And there's also something called an equity change index. So the whole purpose of the identifications and the continuous improvement is to reduce gaps while also increasing performance for all students. So that's where the calculations come in. So you'll see, if you have a gap, you'll see that in your current gap status or current equity index. And if your gap hasn't changed over time, you'll also see that. If your gap has changed over time, you'll see if it's changed for the better by going up, or if it's changed, but as a result of perhaps all students' performance coming down. So we are required to identify schools for targeted support and improvement. And in Vermont, we call this Equity 2. And this is for schools who are have persistent equity gaps for particular student groups. So for Equity 2, you're identified if the following conditions are met. In 2 consecutive years, you've been identified for equity 1, and that same student group has either closed the gap due to declining performance, as I just showed with my hands, or that student group of interest is in the lowest 5% of the equity 1 schools for improvement for that student group. And schools exit when they no longer meet those criteria. So then if you're kind of in that category of equity 2 or targeted support improvement, from those schools, we select or identify schools for additional targeted support and improvement, or equity 3. So these schools are identified from amongst that targeted group, TSI group, for each student group, that if the performance is lower than the highest performing of the all student group in the comprehensive schools, you'll move into that category for additional targeted support and improvement. So basically, you're still seeing the persistent gaps between these student groups, but there's also kind of a decline in performance to a certain degree. One more, and then I'm going to stop for a minute. It's a lot of information. And then I want to kind of give it to you in a more digestible way. So also in ESSA, we need to describe a methodology that identifies not less than the lowest performing 5% of all schools receiving Title I funds. And so in Vermont, we make these designations based on a couple of things, because we do have some small schools. So schools who are in the bottom 5% of the Title I schools will be identified based on the weighted sum of those school quality measures that I've spoken about. Any public school with a graduation rate less than 67%. And in our smaller PK or K2 schools, if that school is in an SU that is in the lowest performing 5% of SUs, it'll be identified. Or if that school if the results of the 3rd grade in that school are in the lowest performing. Final way to enter comprehensive status is if you are in that additional targeted support and improvement, so your equity gaps are persisting, performance is declining. If that happens for an additional cycle, you will automatically be eligible for comprehensive support and improvement. The good news with comprehensive support and improvement is you do receive much more in-depth support, as well as grant funding to support your continuous improvement planning. So basically we have 2 categories: comprehensive support and improvement. Those are the conditions right there that you see. So graduation rate, low performing. And then we have targeted support and improvement, or equity achievement gaps, persistent achievement gaps. I'm going to stop there for a second and then walk you through a little bit of what the snapshot looks like. So, questions so far?
There are some questions in the chat, Lori.
Okay.
Let me scroll up here. Looks like is the annual snapshot available now?
It is live for you to view. And if someone wouldn't mind dropping a link in the chat to the snapshot, that would be great.
And then what is the most recent data included in the snapshot?
2024, 23, 24.
Okay. And then another question, are the demographic groups included in the comparison groups?
Yes.
Okay. And then there's just a comment about seeing the actual metrics on how you calculate the gaps would be important for us to see and understand. Okay, so is an academic gap reduced if a student working off of grade level achieves proficiency at a grade level below the grade they are in. So for example, a student achieving proficiency at grade 3, but attending a grade 4 class.
So I think that's more complex. Because these are all weighted sums, things are aggregated up. I wish I had, there's an example that I might pull up here if I can. Are you still seeing my screen? Or are you seeing the PowerPoint?
PowerPoint.
Okay, good. I'm going to do something here on the fly. Try to. I might stop sharing for a second. Did that stop?
Nope, not yet.
Okay, good. Come back to Teams here. So let me go down here and see if I can. Oh, it's not there. I have a visual that might help. Okay. It's not coming up though. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and share something else for just a second to show you the complexity of the calculations. Can you see this?
Mhm.
Okay. This is an example of how all of those indicators that I just shared get aggregated or rolled up, summed, weighted, summed into a point value. And this point value places a school on a chart for equity or comprehensive support. So it's based on a lot of aggregation and summarization is the only way I can kind of explain it. So to answer that, I wouldn't be able to answer that question because it goes up to the school level. However, our team always encourages you all to look at your local data where you can drill down by the assessment to much more detailed, targeted, and claim support that you can get that information. This does not, from what we can show you, we would not be able to get to that level of specificity. But I really would encourage you, if you have really specific questions about those calculations, to walk through it, to contact Glenn and Danielle, because they do that work and they can maybe walk you through an example. Other questions? I know some hands were up too. I'm going to reshare my PowerPoint here.
Melanie, do you want to ask your question?
Thanks, Tony. Hi, everybody. Lori, when you get the PowerPoint back up, I have a question about equity 2, or the slide that happened after equity 1 status. Okay.
This one?
Yes. Okay. So equity 2 is better than equity 1? Like we're making improvement?
No, it's a prolonged kind of period in
Prolonged.
equity 1.
Because
Yeah.
I'm kind of confused about letter A. The school has closed the gap due to
Yeah, so that's where my hands were coming down like this. Like you may have closed the gap, but it's
understanding.
because, yeah.
Of the all student group. Thank you. Got it.
Yeah, no problem. It's a very, very complex accountability structure that we have. And our team is more than happy to help you walk through your raw assessment data and kind of navigate where those gaps exist specifically using scale scores and proficiency levels. But these data are for accountability, and as you can see, there's a lot that goes into it, and it rolls up and aggregates to a point value. So it's less easy to disentangle than your raw data. Des, I see your hand up too.
Thanks, Lori. Hey, everyone. My question might be more specific for Josh when we get to have a chance to talk, but it's around targeted equity 2 supports. And if a school was identified in need of supports for students on IEPs, not performing as well as, or for whatever reason, if it's the gap persistence or the declining performance of all students for whatever reason, are we able to see which grades those students are in so that we can identify causality of that? Or
Sort
begin
of.
to?
You can get a starting point, but again, you're definitely going to need to drill down to get further data locally. But I'll
Okay.
just I'm going to walk through this where you can see it in the snapshot. I've got some screenshots here.
Sure. I have a second question though before you go on, if that's okay.
Yep, sure.
And it might be a really simple one to answer. So for, I think it was in the slide that had, or the table that you showed us for readiness, college and career readiness, which tests are used in the state to measure college and career readiness across it? Like, what's the metric that's used? Because it said performance on tests.
Yeah, I believe it's SAT, ASVAB, and maybe ACT. Danielle would know the answer off the top of her head, but we can get that information.
Okay.
It's in our technical manual.
Because that makes a difference to think about which kids are actually taking those tests.
Yeah, Josh, if you want to just make a note, we can send that in the follow-up.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we are in the process of identifying schools right now. We have a review period this week to ensure that everything that we are seeing from the data team gels with what you're seeing, to kind of walk you through it if you need to further information. So we've just identified schools in need of targeted support and additional targeted support and improvement, and any that have moved into comprehensive status as a result of being in that category. Okay, so I'm going to walk through. Melanie, did you have another question, or okay. I don't see any other hands, but let me know. Okay, so when you log into the snapshot, you can view state results and local results. And these are just screenshots of what you might see. And there are several different ways you can explore it. You can explore it by subject area, math, ELA, science. You can look at overall performance in academic, safe, healthy schools, and some other categories as well. But I wanted you to see, based on those indicators I described earlier, what you'll see when you go in here. So for the content standards that are measured for identifications, you can see here the selection of standards or areas, subject areas, and the weights assigned to them. And then when you go into these areas, you will see some icons. I'm not logging in under admin privileges because that allows you to view suppressed data, but you will have that capability to toggle between these icons or more specific numbers that get to those point values I described earlier. The key metrics we use are the performance metrics, and there's the current performance and change in that category, and then the equity index, and there's also current performance and change for those equity gaps. So the ratings that you see in the snapshot reflect that calculated point value for the domain or indicator of interest. And the scale that defines the icons differs for each of the key metrics. So performance, you can see at the top, those are the icons you'll see. And then at the bottom, the change indicators. So here you see the performance metrics on the left. And for current performance, that indicates the performance for the domain or indicator for the academic year that you select. And then performance change will indicate the amount of change for that domain or the indicator for the academic year selected compared to the previous year. The equity index indicates the difference in performance between students who have been historically underserved in schools compared to their historically privileged peers. And the equity change index indicates the amount of change for the current equity index for the academic year selected compared to that previous academic year. And then you'll see two other components here for scale and for growth. So in English language arts and math, indicators are composed of both a scale and growth score. The scale score represents the raw performance of students on the assessment, and the growth score represents the median of student change in performance on the assessment over the past 3 years compared to their academic peers. And then, so when you go in, you can filter between grade, subjects, grade level, and then over here is where you can see those comparisons between student groups. You can also download more specific data in spreadsheets using this download arrow at the top here of the screen. When you do that, you'll see something like this, which again breaks down those 4 key metrics, so you can kind of see the change and the current performance and change for both performance and equity. But again, the local raw data that are also available to you and on the VT dashboard site can give you the more raw data of proficiency and scale score information. And drilling down to data that we don't have access to at the state. So Des, to your point about somebody asked the question to get more information. Okay, I'm going to stop there and see if there are any other questions that we either can answer today or can consult with the DMAD team or the DMAD division to get you answers. We're also happy to, if you've been identified for any of these categories, to walk you through your data, help answer questions about the data, either in the snapshot or your assessment data. I'm sure that the data team would collaborate with us on that as well.
So there are a few questions in the chat, Lori, but I know we have some hands up too, so I'm not sure if you want to.
I see a 2. Where's the 1? There's the 1. Melanie.
No questions?
You still have your hand from before?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Casey.
Gabe Hamilton on this call told me I have 2 hands up, so I must really have wanted to talk.
Oh.
Apologies for having 2 hands up. I didn't mean to take someone else's hand, maybe.
Okay.
I did put a response to the question that I asked earlier in regards to performance level change, and I used part of an email that I received from Danielle. And so she has written that you do need to change performance levels. And so again, my question is, if you're a 4th grader and you change your performance level, but it's on a lower grade level, is that still an indicator of growth? And that might be something that needs to go to Danielle, but I would like that
definitely.
question
Yes.
answered, please.
Yeah. Could you give it to us though in an email? That way, because I
can do that.
speak with Danielle frequently, so I can always follow up
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi again, thanks. So if I heard you correctly, when you're looking at like the academic achievement section, what you're seeing for the growth in the current equity index and performance change in the equity index change sections is a change within 1 year, correct? So from last year, 2022, 23
Yeah.
to 23, 24. Is there a way to, I know I can look beyond that when I toggle, since I'm signed in as admin, I can look at years prior to that. Is there a way to download information that shows beyond that year comparison? Like, could I look at from the snapshot 21, 22, 22, 23, 23, 24 to see that in
It's a good question. I don't know if you
is that a
can do it
Danielle question?
with the snapshot. We'd have to ask if there's some, or explore further to see if there's a way to do that or what it would look like.
I just want
Um,
to see historically for the school that was identified, like how long has this been
Yeah.
going on? And I could dig for each year, but I'm wondering if there's a way to do that so it would be simpler to be able to explain to
I know.
principal, special
Like if it
educators.
was,
Okay.
if you could see it in one place rather than just going to each
Exactly.
year.
Exactly, Lori.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good question. I have to look up that. But I know you can see similar information in the, do we have it here? Oh, I put a slide in about this. Yes, in the Vermont Education Dashboard on that site,
Oh, okay, yep.
you can see
Oh,
like
I
they
know
have
what you're
little
talking about.
charts. Yeah, you can see
Yes.
charts in
Okay.
there.
Okay.
However, the data might be suppressed there.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, thanks.
The other hands that I missed.
So I'm just going to go through the questions in the chat, Lori. Hopefully I don't miss something, but there's a question that says, how is the data disaggregated when the Vermont or VT caps don't allow for demographic information?
That would definitely be a Danielle question. Let me go back and see if anything is on her assessment slide. I don't think so, though. Would answer that. No, I don't know the answer to that. That would have to go to the data team or specifically Danielle, if it's related to the VCAP.
And then there's a comment says, I see the 22, 23 at the top of the snapshot. Am I missing something? So it looks like they're not seeing the 23, 24
Oh, you gotta be kidding.
data
Okay.
yet.
So I'm gonna go in, hold on, let me get out of this
You have
because
to be logged in as in your admin role to be able to see the 23,
Okay.
24.
Great,
yes,
thank you, guys.
yes, okay, good, yes. When you go to the top right, if you log in, you'll be able to see all of that and you'll be able to toggle between the numbers and the icons. If you're unable to, I know that all of our accounts were, I don't know the word for it, but changed or disbanded, or I don't know what happened to them. So you might need to contact the help. If you can't log in, just contact that help and we'll get you set up as quickly as possible. Also, if you're not seeing that you need, if you don't have admin and should have admin privileges, hit that help button.
And then we just have one comment and one final question, Lori. So the comment is, given that the snapshot is live and public and that it is so complex, it would be helpful for the AOE to provide the field with simplistic explanations for boards and families. And then the question is, will we receive an email if one of our schools' equity status has changed?
Yes. You'll receive an email if you are in the status for the current year. So if you don't receive an email, no news is good news. But there was hopefully a memo sent to superintendents from the secretary yesterday, noting that the snapshot is live, and you can go in and see if you're on the Equity One list or the targeted support list. But you will have been identified already if you are currently identified in this year for targeted support and improvement, or if you have moved into comprehensive support and improvement due to your being in additional targeted support and improvement.
And then they would have gotten an email yesterday, right? If they were identified, newly identified, correct? Okay.
Yeah, that went
So
to
then-
superintendents and principals
Okay.
of those schools. But what I can show you real quick too is, get out of this 1 second. Is where to find that, because it's not very intuitive. So let's just go to the Vermont snapshot. So if you're in the snapshot, you do have to be logged in. If you go to academic proficiency, you see all these headers at the top. You can look at the current lists under the additional information tab. And here it will show you comprehensive eligibility, and here's the list for that. It doesn't look like a link, but it should be. Sometimes it takes a very long time. It spins for a bit before it downloads the PDF. And then this is the list for the equity supports. But you can also just log in and look at your institution.
Lori, can you show me that one more time where you saw the list of schools identified?
Yes,
Okay,
please.
so-
Where is
Yeah, so we'll start here at the beginning. I'm just going into the Vermont. I don't want to log in because I don't want any unsuppressed data accidentally being viewed. So, but you can do this locally if you look at your school too. So I'm going into view the Vermont state snapshot, or if you're in your local snapshot, that's fine too. And then I go to academic proficiency and click on this section. And it's hidden way up here in the additional information tab. And then you scroll down and you can see both the comprehensive list, which is here. And it says pre-release right now because everything is in review status. I'm sorry, I went too far. And then the equity supports here. So we're in pre-release right now. It goes live with a press release. That should say pre-release, I would think, because that's what we're in right now. So yeah, so the final lists will be posted next week. But you can see the current status of everything in here if you log in.
So Lori, we have one, we have one question in the chat, and this might be a Danielle question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So the question is the threshold for what is the threshold for performance change? So for example, if we had 56 students in flexible pathways last year and 55 this year, and the overall school population decreased, does that still make the performance declining, or does it need to be a student number of student, or does it need to be a student number or of students? Does it need to be, yeah.
Yeah, so I can't answer that,
Danielle,
but
okay.
we can't drill. I don't even think she would be able to specifically answer if that contributed, because back in the spreadsheet, or the share PowerPoint again. Here is what goes into the identifications. So, and the weights that are assigned to them. So anything related to the specific data that's input and the calculations is our data and ADS team. But I don't think that would even, and I don't even want to speak for them. Yes, the equity list. Oh, that's Tony. I can log in. So I can log in under this state, maybe. I'll do that. Are you seeing my screen still?
No.
Okay, good. So let me log in. Are there any other questions that you can answer while I'm doing this?
I think there's a hand up.
I'm
Courtney?
not sure if that's oh, that is my hand. If there's no data for a particular indicator, such as personalization, I'm assuming it's because it doesn't apply.
Correct.
And then
Yeah.
we have a bunch of small schools, and in some of them, there's no equity index data. Is that like too small student count to produce data?
Yes, so that's why we created that other student group, historically marginalized, and why we also identified the SU level. So sometimes you might see you're identified for equity at the SU level. That's another way that we do that.
Got
I'm
it.
trying to share my screen here. Seem to want to do that anymore. Okay, there we go. All right, so I'm logged in. I will look at what was it that, oh, to make sure the 23, 24. So here's 23, 24. It's at the very bottom. You'd have to go there. Oh, and here multiple years. Let's see what this does. Okay, you can only go back 3 years, Des.
And then I can download that same table for those 3 years.
Let's see what I get.
I'll try it. I'll play around with it, or I'll ask Josh.
Yeah, if I do it now, it's gonna. Well, let's see. I can get the
You can do
suppressed data.
suppressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see what I get. Okay, so it's still just going to show you those point values. That doesn't look like 3 years of data. That's strange. But you'd have to put it in, like you'd have to play around with it in Excel and charts if you wanted to look at it in a friendlier way, I guess.
Lori, can you show that one more time? I'm not seeing the same drop down. I'm getting I don't even see a year. I just get this weird oblong thing, and I can't tell if it's just loaded funny. And I'm logged in.
Oh, you are? That's what I was getting too before they finished it and put it live. Well, yeah, see, are you just getting this without the text, right? This bubble?
I can't see your screen, but I think it sounds familiar.
Yeah. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Suppress data though. Yeah, so that's odd. Let me go back here. So when I go here, you're looking at the right place. It's just that you're not seeing this box.
Correct.
Okay, I would contact the help desk or hit this help button up here. Will be your best friend if you're having technical difficulties. And they can resolve that for you.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Courtney? Or is that an older hand?
Sorry, I think that's an old hand.
Des.
Me again. So I looked at the list of all of the schools that are receiving supports, equity 1, 2, or 3. And school in RSU that received an email saying that we were receiving equity 2 designation has listed under that category equity 1, equity 2, and equity 3. And I just want to make sure that it's the correct designation before this goes out to the public.
Yeah. So if you want to set up a time to, we're asking everybody, like, now's the time
Sure.
to kind of
Okay.
get a separate call with us. We can make
I
sure
can do that.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. But
And then
that can happen. You can be designated, and usually does happen in multiple categories, just because of the way the way we
it's just a big difference in what I have to do if it's equity 2 or equity 3 and what that means for the school. So my second question, which maybe you answered and I missed it because I was multitasking, for equity, and this is, I think, general for everyone. So Josh, I'll email you and set up a call. But if indeed the school is just identified for equity 2 supports, is it what's the word I'm looking for? What we have to do then is make sure that our data inventories and our CIP goals are reflecting that need, period. That's the only thing we have to do. It's different than comprehensive supports.
So when you go into the CIP, there's a section that is for identified schools to complete. So you'll make sure your goals are addressing those specific reasons and your strategies, of course, evidence-based strategies for those reasons. There's also another section related to resource allocation that you'll want to complete.
Okay. But it's not as intensive as comprehensive supports unless indeed we are identified for those two.
Yeah, and you get more support from us too. Like that's the whole shift with, No Child Left Behind. It was punitive. Hey, here, you're here, and that's it.
Yeah.
We're kind of looking at it as, and it's in the title, like, you're identified for targeted support and improvement. So we're there to support you along the way too.
All right. Josh, I will be in touch.
Josh, can you make a note too for me to reach out separately to ADS and the help, just to see if logins or what the issue with logins might be?
Sure.
Looks like other people are experiencing it too.
Logins to the accounts?
Yeah, why they're not seeing that the years.
Okay. I just want to mention that I've received about 25 emails regarding updating accounts, so I'll be doing that throughout the day, so everybody knows.
Okay, that could be why. Okay,
not sure.
Okay, so let's see if that resolves it. Yeah, I think everything was kind of wiped clean, or we even had to get our reassignments for our logins as well. Any other questions, or, like we said, feel free to contact us for a separate session if you're needing help navigating or understanding any of the data you're seeing. But our team, our continuous improvement team, is here to support you along the way. We also really, again, encourage you to look deeply at your local data, your assessment data, your benchmark data, all of those pieces that tell you much more than these data even. So this is a starting point for you. Drill deeper, and we're here to support you in developing your plans. Jody.
Thank you. I have a question. When we spoke previously, when we did the Listen and Learn series, we talked about how our concerns in Northeast Kingdom, about our concerns with the VCAP data, not letting us drill down in a way that's really meaningful. And
Yeah,
I'm wondering where things stand on that situation, because at this point it's not actually giving us actionable steps. And so having our staff really buy into it is more of a challenge because of that. So I'm just wondering where things stand.
Yeah, and I remember that conversation because I did have a conversation with Danielle afterward in a group setting, but we talked about that. And I was under the impression that she seemed to think it was able to. And so I will follow up with her again. I see other heads shaking too. Okay, so I'm going to follow up with Danielle to reach out to you all. And if it's something that is supposed to be available to you and is not, we'll see.
ASAP.
Yeah. Because I want to stop saying that if it's not too, because I was certain that it was.
I was also looking at other people's heads, so I'm glad Des was shaking her head, because I'm like, oh no, is it something I missed?
Because it definitely was with SBAC. Like, so I don't know.
SBAC 100%. This is completely different.
Okay. I'm gonna look into that and find out if it is, and if it's not. If it is, then what the problem is. Karen.
I might just add to that if folks are going into the data to look at current data from last spring, you can only drill down to gender right now. And I found out that's because it's an enrollment period, but apparently it impacts class 2, the CAP.
I'm having a lot of trouble hearing you. I don't know if it's just on my end. I think you're responding to Jody's. Yeah, we can't. Are you able to type in the chat what your question or your response? I think it might be a response, but I'm not quite sure. Okay, thanks. So look into that. Logins, hopefully they'll be resolved with Josh's magic today. If not, we'll check in on that too. Yeah. All right. To be continued. Reach out if you need support, if you have questions. And thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you, everyone.
Great one.